emergency services, our goal is to truly build community with the neighbors that we serve. But when I look at the people here today with us, it's also about building a community with all of you. And one of the most important things for us is we really want to do a great job of engaging with all of you because you have provided your time, you've provided your resources, you've provided support to us financially, and it's important that you not only understand what we're doing, but where we also want to go as a collective as we move forward. So first of all, just a huge thanks to all of you. The second thing I want to do is, I'm going to ask just very briefly, I know we have several staff in the back, but if the staff of CES could just stand up for a minute, or wave, just wave. There we go. I've said this many times before, but our staff and our volunteers is what make CES CES. And our staff in particular are people that literally could go to a grocery store or could go to a Target tomorrow and make more money than they make at CES. And yet something draws them to CES. And it's wonderful to see the dedication of purpose and the soul-filling work that they do. And there's just been, in my own transition, there's been so much that the staff have given to me and given to our neighbors. So just a huge thanks to all of you for what you do. Before I introduce our guest, which is Pastor George Osborne, I'll talk for a few moments about George. I wanted to say a few words about the most important people that are actually not here tonight, which is our neighbors. We saw 46 families today, which was fantastic. Probably about a 30% increase over what we've been doing in the last few weeks. And I don't take that lightly because we're increasing in the support that we provide to families because we have to. Right? We have to. There's more need out there today. But our neighbors are so critical to us, and we really do try as a team to put them at the center of everything that we do. I had a chance to speak at the state capitol a few weeks ago, and the numbers are shocking to me, and I'm sure to all of you. But in 2019, there were 3.6 million visits to food shelves in the state of Minnesota. We've stopped quoting with the 2023 numbers because, of course, we're already 3 months into 2024. And the 2024 numbers, if we model them, we are looking to be over 8.3 million. So we've gone from 3.6 million people to 8.3 million people in the matter of 4 years. And what I stress with our team is those are successful visits to food shelves. Successful visits, which means they've come in, they've waited, they've gotten a number. Brian, Lorraine, all of you take them downstairs, and they successfully visit the food shelf. That number does not include all the people that we turn away every single day, right? And so, it wasn't very long ago where we were turning away as many people as were coming. And so we're really trying to do everything we can to address that, address more people. And our neighbors are wonderful people. Many of you have met them, some of you have not had the chance to spend time talking with them. But one of the things that we really want to face into as we evolve and we grow is how do we maintain and enhance the pastoral model that we provide to CES? I mean, this is not about just getting people into food shelf and getting them out as quickly. We want to serve the whole of the person, the whole of the soul. And how do we do that in a way that also allows them to nourish, allows us to nourish them? And so it's not just economic or food poverty, but a very good friend of mine, Carl Baer, puts it, he came for a visit and said there's a poverty of spirit. Poverty of spirit amongst people that needs to be fed. And that ultimately is really the mission of CES. We want to turn people from being hungry, from hunger to hope, right? And it's not from hunger to, or a lack of hunger or lack of nutrition to just simply giving them nutrition. It's about giving them hope, which is about the whole person. And the need for food grows, as I said. We would routinely, up until last month, have people that would, today's a perfect example, it's Tuesday, we would have people that would line up early in the morning. They would wait for 4 to 5 hours outside of the doors because, of course, we have so many activities going on with our other programs, bringing in food, that we wouldn't be able to open the doors until 1 p.m. And then they would come in exactly as you're staged here. So look around. this is the amount of people that we would bring into the food shelf every single day, and they would draw a number. And if you were lucky, you got a number that was less than 10. If you were unlucky, you got a number that was over 25 or 30, and that was your place in line. And that, in real terms, meant that you could be sitting here from anywhere from 15 minutes, if you were lucky, to 2 hours. And add that to the amount of time that they spend outside. And our team and our volunteers, I know, try their very best to treat our neighbors in a dignified way. There is nothing dignified about waiting in a food line for 5 or 6 hours, right? Nothing. And especially nothing when you wait for the 5 hours outside and you find out, oh, the sign's been put up, there's not enough food today, and they're turned it back to come another day. So I think the neighbors have always been and will continue to be the center of everything that we do. So I want to spend a minute and talk about how we're changing the CES. And there have been a lot of changes. Some of you will be very, very well aware of these changes. Some of you not so much. But I think it's important that all of us as a team understand what we've done and where we're going. And we will continue to do this. So the first thing is, we used to have an office, we called it 2600 just because it was the block that we were in. We had an office about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away from here. And it was an office that was set up and leased for a very good purpose at the time, but it also pulled a large number of our key staff out of the church, out of this building, and away, quite frankly, from our neighbors, right? So over the last couple of months, we had several people leaving. Linda, Juanita, Joan Maxman, who's here, led the transition of moving out of that office and back into the church, which is wonderful. And it's not just about the cost. I mean, of course, we will always be fantastic stewards of your money. You should expect that we are only spending money on things that are the most important for our neighbors. But it was more than that, right? So we did away with the office. We closed up officially on March 31st, but we were actually out of there a few weeks early. It's amazing to have our staff all in one place and to be close to our neighbors, because we want our staff, we want all of our volunteers to be able to engage with our neighbors while they're here to nurture the Holy Spirit. So that's been fantastic. The second thing, and I think probably the most important one, many of you will be aware, certainly our staff is well aware, that we made a fundamental change over the last couple of months. And we spent a lot of time talking about the very topic I talked about, which is the lack of dignity in waiting in food shelves for so long. And so we piloted several months ago a scheduling system. So for those that don't know what I'm talking about, it's imagine booking a restaurant table, an open table. It's the exact same kind of software. So our clients would come in, they would scan a code, or they could manually sign up for a time slot. And we took the time of them waiting from 5 or 6 hours down to 30 minutes. We piloted it because we really didn't know if it was going to work. And I think one of the biggest questions we had was, will people really be willing or able to do this? And the reality is, they're all able to do it, right? Every neighbor that we have, maybe there's a couple of exceptions, have iPhones. And everybody in our neighborhood has an iPhone, they have a contract for an iPhone, they pay for an iPhone, they have apps on their iPhone. And so this was actually not a very far stretch at all. And it's been fantastic. So the pilot went great. As of April 2nd, Krista, wherever she is, we decided to move that across all of our food shelf program. And so now we don't have any lines. And it's fun because about 2 weeks ago, I took a picture outside the church and sent it to our board. And it was a blank wall. It was just the wall of the church. And of course, had I taken it a few days before, we would have had 30 or 40 seats lined up every morning, which we do, people waiting in line, people getting angry, people getting upset because they're waiting for so long, often bringing children with them to help them wait in line or trade off at their spot in line because they were desperate to not lose their spot. And all of it was gone. And so it honestly just warms my heart to pull up here in the morning and see there's nobody eating in the food shelf. I think the other advantage for us is that in keeping with our desire to truly have a pastoral model and spend more valuable time with the people in CES, it does away with this, quite frankly. And so if you imagine, when people are coming into the church for the food shelf in the old model, it can be very daunting for a volunteer, we call them come out and say, Bob, I'd like to talk to you about God. I'd like to pray for you. It's really hard for a lot of people to do that in a huge audience. And if we keep the neighbors at the center of what we do, it's even harder for the neighbors because it's like, well, why are you singling me? Right? So we take them into the back. And I think a lot of people, because of their circumstances, wonder, why did Brian go in the back of this person? It's a beautiful calm that's in this church now. And so we have probably 5 or 6 people that will sit here. Some will come a bit early for their schedule. We had one gentleman this morning. He had, this afternoon, he had a 3 o'clock appointment. He came at 2:15. He just came to hang around. But the benefit of this is it allows us to really, really focus and spend time with people while they're here. And so by every measure, the pilot went fantastic. The first few weeks have gone phenomenal. We would, in our old model where everybody would rush in, I call it kind of the cattle call, we would see about 32, 33 families if we were lucky per day. And a family for us represents about 4 people. So this last couple of weeks, and in fact today, Christina told me, I think we had 46 or 47 sign up. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's a 30+% lift in the people that we're serving just by making that change to how we schedule, how we bring people in, and quite frankly, how we treat them in a more dignified way. So it's been wonderful. The other thing that we are focusing on is, and this is, we hope, the next step, is we've spent quite a bit of time talking with our neighbors, and there is certainly a group of people, and particularly exists within single mothers, where they could never wait in our food shelf line. So if you can't wait in the CS line in the old model, you're going somewhere else, and you're begging and borrowing for food somewhere else. But even the scheduling system may not work for them because these are people that have childcare responsibilities, they have a part-time or a full-time job, and our scheduling system for now, until we decide what we're doing with the schedule itself, is really focused on kind of what I call working hours of the food shelf. But for a single mom who has a part-time or a full-time job, she can't make an appointment because she can't come during the hours that we have, or the time slots that we put in. And so what we've been working with is a company from Wisconsin who is designing for us right now. Amazon, if anybody knows what Amazon food or drop boxes are, we're getting those drop boxes designed to be for food specifically. They can refrigerate them, they can bring them on site. We would want to put them in front of the church. They can have them monitored remotely so they can fix them or troubleshoot them if there's ever a problem with them. They're all electronic. And we can start to click those things in as the need becomes greater. And so we could literally go from a client or a neighbor having a 5-hour wait to a 30-minute wait, which is the reality today, to probably a 1 or 2 minute visit to the food shelf. And all we would do is we will send QR codes to people. You will scan on the lockers, the QR code, the locker pops open, and it's exactly the same amount of food we would get if you would come to visit the food shelf. But it accommodates the fact that we want people to get a step up, we want them to get ahead in life, and not create the next generation of professional food shoppers. The other thing I would say is, this is, I'll call the boring things, but we are going through IT renovations across the entire CES building, HR renovations, finance renovations. In fact, we have many of our partners here that will help us with that. And the reason that's so important is that we can't introduce some of these things unless we have those base processes in place. So there is no way that I'm going to be able to introduce food shelves outside if I have old computer towers with floppy disks that we use. There's no way to do it, right? So we've got to do those types of things. And so I would just say that, the types of things that we're thinking about both today and in the future, they really, really are focused on what is best for our neighbors and how do we best support our neighbors. The other thing that we did was, in the last board meeting that we had, we decided to introduce a brand new committee called the Pastoral Care Committee, which Kitty is going to be chairing for us. And the reason that we're doing that is we know that changes within CS are going to continue to evolve, right? How we serve neighbors, how we engage with neighbors is going to evolve. But we don't want to lose the essence of our mission in terms of supporting the whole person. And so we, in fact, our Pastoral Care Committee met an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago. We have a committee that is made up of board members, staff members Sean was going to be on that, and some outside people. And the whole point of that committee is to help us get ahead of and think about what does the pastoral model, what does the care model of CS start to look like in the future as we continue to see these evolutions of changes. And so I think that's where I'm going to wrap up. I always love the phrase, and I'm going to steal this from Kitty because when I came and met with the board before I took the role of CS, she talked to me about Matthew 26:11, which of course is, the poor will always be with us. And I think for some people, they can look at that as a very defeatist passage, right? We would never get ahead. What can we really do? What are we doing that's actually making a difference? And it absolutely is making a difference. Everything that you do, whether you volunteer, whether you support in other ways, makes a fundamental difference in the lives of people every single day, especially when you treat the whole of the person. They're not treated as a number. I think the other thing is that Matthew really reminds us that we always have and are obligated to help those that are in need and are less fortunate than ourselves, right? And so serving people like that and being grateful to be able to serve people like that is ultimately our mission to see us as people. So thank you so much for being here. I will say in advance, this is the first of, but certainly not the last time we're going to be reaching out to you and asking you to get together. We hope that it's in person because I do think that it truly does build a sense of community, but we also need Zoom. But our intention is to really try to do this at least 2 times a year, possibly more as we go forward, because it is important for us to share with you the whole of what CES is doing and where we're going. And then the last one is we've been working on this for 3 or 4 months, but you can make a mental note. We'll send a message out to you, but on June 7th, we're having our very first Vikings family. So the Vikings Foundation, and they're going to be partnering with Excel, they're going to come to CES, and they're going to take one of our Free Friday days, and they're going to convert into, it's just choked up when I think about it, food that's going to be prepared for families. They're going to convert the church into a series of games and activities for them. And it's really what we hope is the start of a relationship with the Vikings, because we've talked with them many times and said, we are literally outside the door. We're 3 blocks away, and people are literally hungry and dying in the streets. How can you help us? And they really rose to the occasion, and they've come back to us with a really great opportunity. So I'll end there. I want to introduce Pastor George Osborne next. George, I will not say anything because I know it's taking too much time, but he's someone that my wife Darren and I met about 12 years ago in Southeast Asia when we were stationed in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Was a guest speaker in the region and really touched our lives. And then I lost contact with him for years and years. And I regained contact with him a recent while ago and found out that George is doing exactly what I'm doing. George opened a church in the poorest area of the United Kingdom, but he opened a church and a food shelf together. And when he told me that, I'm like, oh, God, I literally put this person back into my life for a reason. And so I just reconnected with George, and my wife and I felt it was so powerful, the story, that we wanted to bring him over and really spend some time talking to him about his experiences. So, thank you.
Hello. It's good to see you all, good to be here. That's Jamie's version of events. My version of events is I've come here to learn from you guys and to pinch loads of ideas, which I'm already doing in my mind. So it's been a really helpful day for me to be amongst you and see what's going on here. So thank you, those that I've already met, thank you for welcoming me and allowing me to be part of this today. I'm really encouraged and inspired by what you're doing. And so I'm just going to share something of my story with you. I'm going to share something of Hope's story, as in the name of our church and our community fridge. And then I'm going to end by sharing my favourite story, which is the story of Jesus, which inspires me and I'm sure inspires many of you. And so I'm stood here as someone called a pastor, but that wasn't my upbringing. My parents weren't Christians. In fact, my father, he was an alcoholic, he wasn't really around. And so it meant that I got in a lot of trouble when I was younger. So from the age of about 8 years old, I began smoking. By the age of about 10 and 11, I was already beginning to get involved in drugs. So this is the nice gentleman stood before you in his nice iron shirt. But this is my background, and I didn't believe in God, didn't believe in anything like that. And so at the age of about 13, somebody at school introduced me to a Ouija board. Now, I don't know if you know what that's all about, but it's something people think you can contact the dead on. You're all saying, I thought we turned up here for a volunteer appreciation evening, and then we're talking about their God. But this is my story. I often say to people, I'd much rather have a story about, I don't know, being some ex-boxing champion or American football player. But this is what happened to me. And I really genuinely believe that God wants me to keep sharing this story with people, because it's his story, really. But as I played this game, I thought I'd just wind my friends up and have a joke. I didn't believe in anything supernatural. But as I played it, information that came back was information I knew nobody in that room knew about. Stuff about my family, stuff that was going on. And I quickly realised there was something spiritual happening here. And I became quite excited by it, in fact addicted to playing this game. And I played it again and again and again. And it was giving me help at school, it was giving me help in understanding things that I shouldn't have known about different people. It was exciting. But to cut a long story short, I found myself outside a church building, a bit like this building. And being the nice boy that I was, I just started throwing stones at the building. I was trying to smash the windows with a couple of friends. But a man came out from that church, not a worker, not a full-time worker, he was just working with the youth, doing a little group. And he began to talk to me. And I gave him a hard time, to be honest with you. I was just spitting on the floor in front of him. He began to talk to me about Jesus, and I didn't want to know. And he said, look, can I just pray for you before you go? He crossed that line and he engaged with me, and he said, I want to pray for you. For the first time I was thinking, why does he want to pray for me? And he put his hand on my shoulder. I can't remember what he prayed, but he said, in the name of Jesus. And as soon as he mentioned the name Jesus, there was a violent reaction. There was something going on. And in fact, he asked us to come back to the church. And over the next number of weeks we did, and things turned very dark the closer I got to God. But there was one occasion, I was down a railway track, I was chasing some friends, and in England, the railway lines were electrocuted all the time. There's electric running through them all the time, and there's fences you shouldn't cross. So 2 miracles happened for me that night, because I was lying on that railway track, but I wasn't electrocuted. And the second thing was that there was a train coming towards me, and there was a group of friends on a bridge above all screaming at me to get up. And before the train hit me, it was as though someone just grabbed a hold of the back of my shirt and pulled me up off that track. And I turned around to see who it was, and there was nobody stood there. There was no human being. And my friends that were on that bridge, Christians and non-Christians to this day, still testify that there was no one stood behind me. And you see, I think in that moment, I can't explain how, but God pulled me up off that train. And I think this is such a picture for what God wants to do in this world. Take us from a place of death to a place of life, from a place of captivity to a place of freedom. And I ran to my Christian friend's house, told him what happened, and I was scared. And he said, look, you need to pray to Jesus. And I did that night. I prayed to Jesus, and whatever that darkness was, it did leave me. And we gave an assembly at my school. We told all these school pupils what had happened. It was an amazing time, and I started going to church. But after a while, I started trying to read the Bible, and I didn't really understand it as a teenager, to be honest. And I started to drift away after about 3 to 6 months. And I guess I just went back to the old family philosophy that I was taught. Just be happy in life, George. Just follow whatever makes you happy. And I went back to just trying to live for money, live for parties, live for good times. I tried everything, to be honest with you. Drink, drugs, relationships, you name it. Eventually, I went travelling to Thailand with some school friends, and I found myself on an island called Koh Samui. If you've ever been there, it's beautiful. And after about 3 months, it was just this nagging feeling. What am I doing? What's the purpose of my life? Why am I here? And I began to get quite angry. Why can't I find what I'm looking for? What's wrong with me? And I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, that the problem with the human heart is the heart of the human problem. And I began to realise, actually, yes, the problem was with me. And I went back to England, and I thought, well, maybe God does have the answers. And I decided to go back into this church that I'd been in all those years ago. And there was pews just like I'm looking out across today. And I sat near the back, and the man at the front that night was speaking about the prodigal son. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that story. that's not my story, I don't know what is in the Bible, but it's all about that boy, isn't it? Goes off to a distant land, squanders his money on wild living, and he thinks, maybe if I go back to my dad and say sorry and beg for him to give me a job or something like that, he'll take me back. And his father, who represents God, sees him from afar off. He's been waiting for him, he's desperate for him, he's desperate to reach out, and he runs to his son, doesn't he, and embraces his son and kisses him and gives him the family ring and the robe. And as I was crying in that moment, I realised that's the thing I've been looking for in my life. All the places I've been searching. In fact, it was God that I was made to know and to be in a relationship with. And it was that love that didn't say, where's my money, or what have you been doing, or demand anything. We've been talking a lot about grace today. I just experienced that grace and that love. And that is what transformed my life. And there's been many ups and downs as I've returned, but from 2008 I began serving in the ministry full time, just passionate to tell people about Jesus. I didn't have a job, didn't have money, but people said, look, we'll give you a bit of money, why don't you just go and do it, go and tell people. And that's kind of what I started doing, and we began to work for a charity called Avanti, which is literally the Italian word for go, and that's what we did. We tried to go to as many places as we could, which is where I met Jamie in Malaysia. We went to many different countries. And it's mad the places that God takes you. I've ended up in prisons, not because I did anything wrong, but just to speak to people. I've been in schools. I've literally been in the sewers in Romania talking to people. I've been in Singapore in dinners with the owners of the biggest banks in the world. I've been in government offices and hospitals. I've been in New Age shows, and now I've been in Minneapolis to the CES. Huge privilege. And so one of the jobs that I then ended up doing when I stopped working for that charity is a place called the Lighthouse Project, which is very similar to what you're doing here. 4 floors with clothing banks and toy banks, and we had bread making classes, we had a cafe running there, we had job seeker stuff going on, just loads of stuff to try and help people to get back on their feet. And it was I was part of the leadership team there, and I really wanted to take that to other places. And during this time, I got married in about 2010 to a beautiful woman called Kate, who was the long-suffering wife. But from 2012 to about 2019, we were trying for children. We had 4 children, and Grace, we lost Grace at 21 weeks, and we lost all the others. It was heartbreaking. It was one of the most difficult things that I've ever been through. And then I was talking to someone tonight about fostering. We tried to adopt. We thought, well, maybe that's God's route for us. And so we began adoption. There was a friend of mine who I'd been on seminary with said, come up to Liverpool, we'd love you in Liverpool. So I'm really sorry, we can't come. We're going to adopt a child and they want us to stay near our family. 6 months into that process, they said, look, we don't think you're ready to adopt because of all the children that you've lost and the pain that you've gone through. We just don't think you're ready. And that was like, knife to the heart. That was harder in some ways than losing children. Someone saying to you, I don't think you'd be a good parent. But again, it's God's grace. Because then we're able to say yes to going to Liverpool. So we moved up to Liverpool, which is the northwest of the UK, in 2019 with a view to starting a church. We joined a larger church in the city, and to take 13 adults into one of the most deprived areas of the country. And so Liverpool is looked down upon by the rest of the UK, and Liverpool then looked down on Kensington, where we started our little church. So we're the scum of the earth, if you like. Everyone kind of looks down on us and where we are. So that was 2021 when we planted Hope Church Kensington. We're in the bottom 1% of the poverty indexes in our country. I'm sure you can relate. We have the red light district in our vicinity. There's 62 languages spoken in our local secondary school. There's about 1.3 million people in our city. And our strapline is we want to see everyone rejoicing in the living hope of Jesus. Hope. Hope Church. I keep hearing that word today as well. Hope. People need hope. 2020, April 2020, Henry, our son, our first son, arrived. 2021, Amelie arrived. A little bit quicker than we were expecting. So now we have a 4-year-old and a nearly 3-year-old, and so that's why my wife is long suffering at home. But again, God's grace and God's favour and God's hope. And so we opened our little food project alongside the church. We call it Hope Community Fridge. And every week, like you, we serve many different people from the community. And it's a huge privilege. We get about 40 families a week. We're smaller than you in many ways. And into the room they come, so I'm already going to pinch this idea of the queuing system, because as they come in our room, it's hectic, isn't it, for that first hour, and people are everywhere, and there's things going on, and I try and stand at the front and share a little word, and there's people buzzing around everywhere. But it's a huge privilege to be able to do that, and I love it. One of the stories I wanted to share with you, because we're very much about transformation and not transaction. They're not just a customer or someone coming to get something. We want them, as well as you, to leave with hope. And so Elon, a man from Trinidad, came to the place for food, and actually wanted to come and clean the windows. He didn't want to just take food, he wanted to clean the windows so he could have some food. And so we let him do that, and he came in and he had his little bit of money. We charge a small amount just to give people a little bit of dignity in that, to purchase something. And he gave us his window cleaning money that we just given him back to us so he could get a food shop. And we sat down with him and we began talking to him. Quickly it turned out he had a very broken story. I think he'd been trafficked to the UK, had a kidney problem. He couldn't get healthcare in his country, so wanted to come to the UK. Well, he got a free healthcare system. And he was trafficked. Somebody used him to sell drugs, to send money back to Trinidad. They would pay for his flight, would come and do some work, and they lied to him really, and he got involved in that. So when we met him, he was in the middle of the court case. And during that period, he actually decided he wanted to follow Jesus. He wanted to become a Christian. He was the first person that we properly engaged with. He was the first person we got to baptise, but then his court case, he was sent to prison for 2 years. But over that 2-year period, I got to visit him and speak to him on the phone, and he'd often phone me, George, and then guess what? Be like, the prison guards are coming up to me at the end of the day, and they want me to pray for them. And George, you know that money that you sent in, I've been able to buy some food, and what I'm doing with the food is I'm putting it under my bed and I'm buying some blankets, and all the other prisoners that don't have any family or friends here, they come into my cell and they're asking for help. So basically, George, I'm running a food bank from my prison cell. And it was like he was just running a little mini church right in that prison cell. And it's amazing, isn't it, how the little ripple effects of what you do. Lynn, another lady who lives on her own with health problems. We've invited her into our home after she came to the shop to come and have food. And she's blown away by the community that's there, of people that love and care for her. An older lady living on her own with none of that. Mariam and Morteza, a couple from Iran, moved to the area to find asylum. They don't know anybody, have come for food. And as they've engaged with us, now they've been baptised and just seeing things happen in their life, and they've just received asylum into the country and are completely blown away. I could share many other stories with you, but you get the picture of what God is doing. And I just share these not to say how great we are, but what are we doing? What are we all doing across this world to try and reach out and change lives? And so I wanted to close with just talking about Jesus' story. And I just wanted to share a few verses with you from Mark's Gospel. This is just after a couple of the disciples say to Jesus, can we sit at your right hand and your left hand? Can we be with you in glory? Can we get the best places, the best position? And Jesus responds a bit later on with these verses. He says, you know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. That's what Jesus did. He came to give his life as a ransom to serve. And I know there's going to be people in here with different beliefs and different things going on. You might not believe everything I've said here tonight, and that's fine. But we can look at Jesus and see his service of others and take inspiration from what we're doing here. And so Jesus himself said, what did I come to do? And I love these verses, and I think these apply to you guys here as well. But the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to proclaim He's sent me to proclaim liberty, freedom to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour. We have hope to offer people, don't we? Great hope as they come into this place, and many others like it across the world. And so in our passage from Mark, Jesus says glory comes through suffering, through difficulty. He said, can you take the cup that I'm going to take? And they were like, yeah, we can take it. No, they couldn't. Only Jesus could take that cup, and that cup was the cup of judgment, wasn't it? Only Jesus could take it. And what happens in the hearts of the disciples was pride. Me first, which makes them not go towards others. It's all about what I can get, what I can have in this world. And pride works in so many different ways, but if you're anything like me, it stops me wanting to go towards others, but I see Jesus giving up his pride and giving up self and just moving towards others constantly. Pride is about me. I wonder, do you want to be great, maybe as an organisation? Do you want to be a great organisation in this city? One of you does, that's good. Okay, we do, don't we? We all want to be great. We want to be a great one. That's okay. It's okay to be ambitious. It's okay to want this thing to be absolutely the best it can be. But Jesus says the way to greatness is verse 43. It shall not be so among you. Whoever will be great among you must be your servants. Can I encourage you? I've been here just for a few hours, and I see this in you as a team. You are servant-hearted. You are serving people. Well done. Keep going. You're doing an incredible job. And as you do it, maybe look at Jesus full in the face and see what he did. He didn't come to lord it over us, to pay that ransom, to pay the price for us that we couldn't pay. The price on our head is human life, and he's paid it. He said, I'll pay it for them, I'll give it to them, I'll do it for them, I love them. And so the greatest need for us at Hope Church is not just the food parts, and as important as that is, but it's the bread of life. It's not just a drink, but the living water of Jesus, his Spirit. The greatest need is not just a big smile, as important as that is, but the love of the Father. Jesus comes to be that life, to call us into that path. And it's not just a gritty season, this is going to be hard. No, there's joy, isn't there? And I've seen that again here today. He gave his life. He's come not to be served. He doesn't need anything. He's come to serve us. And I love this word in verse 43 and verse 45, this word servant. I'm not going to pretend that I'm a Greek expert, but the word is diakonos. And dia means thoroughly, and konos means dust. Thoroughly dust. What? Well, it's literally when someone runs, they kick up dust. They're running so fast that the dust comes off the back of their feet. Have you ever seen Roadrunner, that cartoon, when he's running fast? It's that sort of picture, isn't it? He's just fast, off he goes. To thoroughly kick up dust. It's like a king who gives his servant an order to go and take something, and he runs so fast in obedience. It's actually where we get this word minister, to minister to someone's needs, to serve someone, is to thoroughly kick up dust, to get fast, to serving them, to help them, to move towards them. And so the greatest act of service is Jesus. He runs towards us on the cross and the resurrection. We serve. So when things are hard, and I don't know what it looks like for you, it might be people pushing in the line. I heard someone say today, I was here first, and someone just said, look, we're trying our best. But it can be hard sometimes. So where do you get the strength to keep serving? Even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many. How do we keep changing those shelves and loving people and harder people? Even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. How do we keep going in our day-to-day when the job is hard? But even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. How do we keep going when people reject us and they don't want the offer? How do we keep serving others here at CES? Even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Keep going. How do you keep giving your money? Look at Jesus. And do it together. I love that word in your title, community. Such a great word, isn't it? I heard an illustration. I've been here for about 8 days. A guy shared a talk last week, and he talked about the pando tree. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I've never heard of it. It's based here in this country. You should definitely Google it later. But it's the world's largest organism. It's a group of trees, and what happens in those trees is their roots interconnect, and they clasp on to each other. And they then begin to connect to the other tree, and they all clasp onto each other, and it's this massive network of roots. And what's amazing is if a tree gets some sort of disease, or maybe it's chopped in some way, the rest of the trees immediately feel that in the root system. And the tree that is nearer the water gets the water up from the river or the stream or whatever it's near, and sends it across to that tree that needs the nutrients that's just been there. Isn't that amazing? And what a picture of community. Maybe some of you in this room have money and resources, and you're sending that across. Maybe some of you have the gift of being able to talk to people, and you're moving across. Maybe some of you have a passion to serve, and to load the shelves, and to tirelessly work. And so we're like this one big organism, aren't we? Working together and serving one another. It's the picture of what Jesus wants to create a community. So well done for what you're doing. For what it's worth, I appreciate what you're doing, and who am I, but I appreciate what I've seen today. Well done, funders. Well done, team. This little network. Keep looking, keep going. I'm going to pray for you and pray for us, and then I believe we've got a few minutes. Maybe we can have some questions if there's anyone who's got any questions. So I'm going to pray for you and then hand over to questions. So Jesus, just thank you for this room. Thank you for the people here. Thank you for their hearts. Thank you for what this represents. Thank you for that lady I talked to today. What a broken story. But that's who you're bringing in here, Lord. That's who you want to minister to. That's who you want to serve. So please help them to keep serving. Bring the resources that they need, the vision, the wisdom, the teams, the volunteers. Would you keep raising up what this ministry needs? I'm so humbled by the fact this started 50 years ago. That inspires me as we start 3 years ago. Thank you, Lord, for what you're doing. May I come back here, I don't know, in 10, 15 years' time and just hear multiple stories that transformed and changed lives and changed communities. We love you, Jesus, and just commit all of this to you. Amen. So, questions? Anyone want to ask anything? Not that I don't know what I'm going to tell you. Good.
Well, I actually have one question that came in a conversation we had earlier. Can you share with the team?
Could you share with the team the statistic on life expectancy? That was very
So when I first moved to Kensington in Liverpool, there's a Kensington in London. I think you didn't live too many miles away from in Chelsea. But you'll know it's one of the richest parts of the country, Kensington, London. And so there was a journalist that did a comparison between Kensington North and Kensington South. And one of the stats that came out, that was there's 20 years less life expectancy in Liverpool than there is in London. Just purely down to money, access to health, access to being able to get a decent job, social issues, drug issues, that sort of stuff. So it's a very different picture, I'm sure, one you'll see here as well.
So how do you work with the government? How are you involved with them in that? What do they monitor, or what do they do? How do they work with you?
Question. So we don't get a huge amount of support from the government. There are some grants and things like that, but we don't do a huge amount with them. Sometimes they give money to, so we're just about to apply for what's called a lottery fund, which the government kind of semi-involved in, but to be honest, there's not a lot of support and help from the government. So we just raise money through different churches and different grants that we can get hold of, individuals. So
So you were so gracious to pray for us and the work that's being done here. What's the next thing for you guys? What are you not getting to yet that we can pray with you, pray for you in terms of meeting the need or filling the gap?
Thank you. I think people is what we need. So we're a small church. So we started with 13 adults a few years ago. The climate in the UK in terms of people responding to God or wanting to know about God is where you guys are headed, but we're probably a little bit further on, so it's hard ground. So young church in terms of age, but also young in terms of people that want to actually. So all of those guys have sold houses in the richer part of town, moved to the poorer part of town. People that tend to do that are those that are younger, that don't have as many ties. It's quite a young church. We could do with, I don't know if any of you guys that are a little bit older want to move to the UK. But stuff like that, yeah, we could do with people and resources, really, is what we need. But thank you for asking.
Are there a lot of food shops in England or well established?
It's probably most in our area, so in the northwest it's more deprived, so there's a lot there. So in our little area there's 14,000 people. I think there's 5 food places trying to serve those people. We've sort of maxed out at the moment at 40 households. We can't do much more than that, otherwise we'll just run out of money. There's quite a few in the area. There's the biggest organisation in the UK is something called the Trust for Trust, but it's more of an emergency crisis. You're allowed 3 vouchers. With 3 strikes and you're out, basically you get 3 hits at that food bank and then you don't get any more help. So there's concern about just supporting people in their addictions, and if we just keep giving them food, are they going to stay on addictions? And so that's the approach that they've taken. So there is, I was talking to someone earlier, I think it's a little bit newer in our country. I think so 2014 our government had something called the austerity, I can't remember what the phrase was, but they cut back on all the services, and then food banks began springing up because no one was helping people. So they're quite new in our country, I think, really. 10 years.
You partially answered this question, but would you extinguish a little bit more or explain the difference between the food sales system, if I can call it in England, versus the U.S., or the main providers? And then if I want to answer this perhaps for you, I'd ask Jamie a question. I'm interested in the nexus between homelessness and food shelf clients. And I'd just be curious to know from him or from you, what percentage of the food shelf clients are homeless?
You can have that second. So what's the difference between UK and US? So I guess I can speak more about ours to here, a direct comparison. So some of the differences are we charge money to come into to get food. So that's £3.50, about $5. Part of that, we saw that somewhere else, and it was just about trying to offer dignity, so people own that shop. It's not, it's your shop. We're not giving a handout per se. So that's a difference. Otherwise, I don't see a huge amount of difference, to be honest with you. What you're doing here to what we're doing, there'll be a few little tweaks and a few little different things, but otherwise I think it's probably not dissimilar. I think you're probably bigger, not just here but across the US. It seems a bit better organised maybe, and a bit more structure. You're a bit more used to that. I don't know, volunteering, giving, finances and that piece. I think we're not as good in our country. So in supermarkets, people give food at the end of their shop. And one of the biggest supermarkets in our area has a basket, I don't know, about the size of one of the chairs. And it takes a week just to get 20 tins out. It's not really in people's psyche. So I think you're a more giving nation than Brits.
It's true, and I think many people will know that Minnesota is, if not the most, one of the highest giving states in the U.S., right? So you're in the center where people volunteer their time, they volunteer their money, etc. I think, Jim, to your question, I would like to believe after 5 months that one of the significant factors of our neighbors coming in here who are not homeless is us, right? I mean, CES started with this notion of, there is a Sophie's choice that always goes on when people that are poor And so for those who are not aware, our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is what's called a TFAP food shelf program. And so people that sign up for it can only come once per month, which is clearly not enough to cover that food equation. But our team has worked very hard, and we have Free Fridays, which is entirely rescue food. So it's food that we literally, our warehouse staff go out, they collect in vans, they bring it back, and we just create tables of the food. Many people volunteer on Fridays. And Fridays are, honestly, I think, for our staff and our volunteers, are our favorite day, right? I mean, people are happy, they're excited. We allow people on Fridays to come every single Friday. So if you're an individual that is struggling with spending money on your housing and spending money on food, at least in CES, which is not necessarily the case in other food shelves, people can come once per month for their government program, but they can come every single Friday of the month. So people can come 5, sometimes 6 in a longer month to CES and get 40, 50 pounds of food. And so I'd like to believe that what we're doing as a team is really taking the issue of food off the table for them. It gives more ability for them to spend their housing.
Any more questions for Jamie? Back. One more.
The thing that I think is evident here is that you're more than just a food shelf. And I love the fact that the accent is glad and poets. But one of my favorite poems is the vision of Sir Launfal. Sir Launfal is a knight in shining armor, with entourage going off to find the Holy Grail. Last Jesus did last supper. And his group is leaving the castle. There's the beggar right by the door. He cast the crumbs to the beggar. And years later, when he's coming back to his castle, the world is sick and insane. The beggar who's sitting there by the door into the castle, and he taught of hospitality, food and drink, and as Sir Launfal's just looking down, what have you wasted? And he suddenly sees that before him there's someone who says, "Don't bring down." And he gives himself with his alms, feeds 3, himself, his hungry neighbor. And we're trying to be more than just handing out food, also living far more. It's a long poem.
Thank you for sharing, it's good. I love that. I can't remember who said it. It's one beggar trying to show another beggar where to find food. That's the Christian life. We're all beggars, we're all in need.
Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate it. And as you were speaking and as Jamie was speaking, I kept hearing these same words, like, why is this so familiar? And I thought, it's because it's our values. It's our CES values. And so for those that don't know, I'm just going to go through them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values. We are community. We respect the dignity of each person. We are servants. We are stewards. And we are good neighbors. And I think that that really came through in everything that was said by both you, Pastor George, and Jamie. So thank you. And thank you to all the volunteers and other supporters for us. Before we close, we have one other piece of recognition that we want to do. And I know this will make this person feel extremely uncomfortable, but you're going to just have to suck it up. And so there is one volunteer that has been with CES for almost probably as we started 50 years ago. She would know the exact date, but she started and she really was the one to get our Meals on Wheels program up to speed. She was working at a corporation at that time and was part of developing a workplace delivery team. And from that has just continued to support CES and however we needed the support. We ask, she's there, she just does it. And most recently, she was with us through the pandemic. And so she has been on our board much longer than she anticipated to be on our board for that reason. I think, what is our 10, is it 3 years? That somebody should, like, and she was probably 6+ years. She can probably speak to that more. And then afterwards she said, I still want to be involved. I don't want being on the board anymore, but I still want to be involved. And she will it's picking up a phone call, and she is there doing whatever it is that we needed. She was a huge support just most recently in our move, and she is a key organizer. And so I would just say, come on in and make this happen. And all of a sudden, just blink of an eye, it's done. And so we really want to recognize you. So Joan, I'm gonna have to. You are a valuable person for us. Did you see what she said? No, you are. We so appreciate everything you do. So just a small token of our appreciation here, but Jamie has another surprise if you want to.
So we're gonna walk Joan around the church, please. It's very important we do this. Because you all need to see her, and then at some point we're going to stop right here. And so we started a tradition about a month ago where very special people that have taken on the obligation of chairing our board, and certainly the work that she's done as a volunteer, we want to recognize. And we want to recognize because we are a church, right? And so we wanted to have a little plaque done up for Joan and put it on your pew bench, which is going to be right here. So we started with Richard, who's Richard gave us a wave, was given the first plaque. This one is going to be given to Joan. The first one is going to be reserved, doesn't have a plaque yet, but is reserved for Pastor Berg, who started CES at Russell Lund. And so we've left the front pew for them. So thank you so much, Joan, for everything. Woo!
All of the colleagues that I've had. I did start volunteering CES in 1981, delivering meals. And I really would like to thank the clients who received those meals. They inspired me and helped me to realize how closely connected we all are. And it just was such an honor to bring them a meal and see their smile every day. And I've continued to support CES in small ways since then, and I'm grateful for this enormous community of fellow supporters. And I'm appreciative, Pastor George, of the conversation about transformation. I feel that I have been transformed by the opportunities that I have had here, and I hope that I have contributed to transformation